大家好，欢迎来到今天8月19号晚上的禅修现场。那这个是台湾德嘎主办的一个座谈会。那很荣幸今天邀请到德国的 Lama Holger 来跟我们分享。So welcome everyone to the event meditation scene organized by Taiwan Tergar. And today we are very honored to have invited Lama Holger Yeshe here with us. 好，那这次呢，我们邀请到的德国的 Lama Holger 的话呢，他目前是在德国的德嘎，然后他也从1999年就开始学习佛法，并在2005年的时候呢遇到了明就仁波切，然后一直跟着仁波切学习到现在。So Lama Holger Yeshe, he is currently in Germany and he has been learning Dharma since 1999. And in 2005, he met Mingyur Rinpoche and then started his learning and practice with Rinpoche till now. So, 那我们先来跟 Lama 打个招呼吧。So, hello Lama. Hello.
Hello, Fernando.
Hello. So actually here we are very honored to have you, and also we have some questions that our students and volunteers are really interested in having you to talk about it with us. So could you maybe share or brief with us on your background before becoming a monk or before learning Dharma or before learning meditation? Like how was it?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd like to extend my well wishes and like to thank you, the organizers from Tergar Asia, for organizing such an event. And I believe there's been similar events like this before with different invitees, and I feel very honored to be invited by you and to share some things that I can share. And also to acknowledge that even with just 1.5 hours with some time with us two, having a conversation about my experience and about the teachings of Mingyur Rinpoche, we met half an hour before. We agreed to do this like many months ago. So all the pre-planning that has to go, even in such 1.5 hours, and all the volunteers and the translators in the background. And while I'm saying this, I remember that I should speak slower for the benefit of the translators. So thank you so much for everything. And now I think you need to repeat your question again because I I forgot it already.
No worries. Maybe we'll give the translators a bit of a rest and the time to go on. So actually about the questions, first, we would like to maybe, if you could brief us a little bit about your background or like before you became a monk, before you met Dharma or meditation, like how was it like?
Mm. So yeah, I grew up in a very small town in the south of Germany, and I basically, when I was around sort of 15, 16, I could what we could very carefully call very naughty. I got a bit astray. I had to leave school very, very early. And then around 18 in Germany, we were at the time called to either go to military or to do social service. So at that time, I chose to do social service. I moved to Berlin, what is now our capital, which wasn't our capital then, and did a social service for 13 months. And during that time, my, became very clear that I couldn't handle my mind. It was going round in circles, going round in circles. And it was due to many circumstances, being confronted with life in a huge city, being overwhelmed by kind of the world coming in on me. So externally, I noticed that there was something not quite right. And internally, I also noticed there was something not quite right. And out of that, um, is your picture frozen or am I frozen?
And you're back to normal right now. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Just
So, um, and then this was the time, and I took care of people who at that time were diagnosed with HIV. So I was very much also confronted with the immediacy of death. So during that time, there was no proper medications that would kind of like actually prevent premature death. So death was also very much on the forefront of my experience then. And this is where the first clear desire to kind of look inwardly arose, and this is what brought me then in my first stage to the east, where I booked a flight to Thailand, and then this could be said to be kind of like the turning point of my previous life to my life as a practitioner.
oh wow. So first, like you triggered the start of the whole this like journey to maybe look for some answers in life and look for some methods to deal with this like head turning around thing. Starting by the trip you went to Thailand, yeah. So then how did you came across meditation actually? Like, is it because, well, like, uh, pursue trying to find these like answers about this like uh, the problems you face, the head turning around, or because maybe at that time you encountered maybe a major like setback or frustration, and then you just booked the flight to Thailand and you found something there, or like how was it?
Yeah, I would think that it was a combination of the two. So I think the whole question of like, what is this life all about? Um, not as obvious then, but it already started like when I was 13, 14. I remember having conversation about I grew up as a Christian. So, like until the age of 13, I would go to church regularly. But then I remember conversations sort of, when hanging out with friends is like, what about God? Like, how can I know that he's actually there? Like, you know, does that really make sense? Where is he? Where's the proof that he's there? And so, that started very early. And then as I, in my sort of mid-teenage years, around 15, I kind of, basically, abandoned or let go of the church and also of the belief in God, because it didn't make sense to me anymore in an obvious way. I didn't kind of like analyze it like in a deep sense, but there was certainly a drifting away of that belief system. But there was nothing really that could replace it. So then the question of meaning was left. And that wasn't obvious to me either, like I said before, during my time in Berlin. And I think when sort of in hindsight, trying to reflect when something that could give us a sense of purpose in life, like, believing in a God or having a clear idea what you want in life, if none of that is there, which was very much my experience, then there's just like everything is possible. But that was quite challenging, actually. So therefore, this I think would have been part of the challenge that I experienced, where I had no clue where to turn to. There was no sense of direction. There was just this open field in a world that seemed to me utterly unsatisfactory, like knowing what was going on in the world, all the suffering, and the combination of this outer suffering in combination with my inner kind of like lack of direction, I think resulted in a big crisis of meaning in my life. And then it was really just out of coincidence that I booked this flight to Thailand because I heard like it's a country where they practice meditation, and I thought meditation might help. But then, flying to Thailand, my lifestyle didn't change much. So I continued certain habits even when I arrived in Thailand, like, for example, drinking and partying. So that sort of the finding of meaning wasn't that straightforward in the first few weeks of my time there.
Yeah, from what you have been telling us, I like I feel like maybe at that time it felt so lost, like immersed in this like whole um like problems, inner and outer, and also trying to look for a solution, trying to look for maybe happiness somewhere. And then also like in Thailand, of course, definitely the partying, the drinking was there. And so how did you actually met meditation? Like, was it in your trip to Thailand or was it like anywhere else? Like, yeah.
Mm. So yeah, I think before I left, I don't remember very clearly, or while I was there, somebody told me that there is a book that you can buy in any bookshop in Thailand describing different meditation centers where you can, as a Western person, go and learn meditation. And I remember very clearly getting this book, sitting in my guest house room, and at the time my English was so poor that I didn't understand what it was saying there. And I remember very clearly actually taking this book, throwing it in the corner of my room, and saying to myself, if I can't even read this, how the heck am I supposed to able to learn how to meditate? So there was a clear sort of sense of like uh, frustration that went so deep in self-doubt and self-judgment that really made it very difficult. And yet, certain circumstances led me to up in northern Thailand, where an American tourist brought me to a monastery which offered these courses for international students. And then there was a very, very interesting event happening just before that. So I visited that monastery, and then a German television channel looked for people for a documentary to go up to the Golden Triangle, so in the area between Burma, Thailand, and Laos. And I went on that trip. I'm sitting in the hill tribes in this area, and I see the camera team kind of, and me being one of like the actors in that documentary, and it felt so utterly fake and so really yeah, fake is really the best way to describe it, that I sat there, I was looking at the scene, and at that moment I decided, when I go back into the city, I'm gonna go back to this monastery and I'm gonna stay there. But actually, once we were back from this, filming, I went back, took a taxi, went into the monastery, and stayed there for 1 month. And after this month, that was basically it. Since then, this was in 1999. Um, since then, I haven't left basically the path of practice. I mean, I had breaks and I had like doubts and I had periods of like up and downs, but the trajectory of my life since then was pretty much in one direction.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, but what at this point I'm like curious about is actually like when you were facing this kind of problems in life and inner doubts and then was it like the first thing that you tried was to look for meditation or to look for, like in this case, a temple to stay into? Or maybe also you mentioned maybe you traveled to Thailand for maybe, so maybe traveling was one of the options that you tried before. Like what other options maybe you tried before you really look into meditation?
Yeah, yeah, very good. I think the main thing that I've tried was the most unskillful things of like alcohol and drugs and party. And from the skillful part, I mean, I was involved in kind of like some political movements, some social political movements. I was kind of having some friends who were philosophers, but it was all in the head. It didn't really change anything about my emotional experience. So all of, and of course, with, drinking alcohol, for example, it's just postponing the problem. It doesn't solve anything. But then in terms of other sort of more skillful solutions, to be honest, like none of them really occurred to me. Of course, one was aware that there's, psychologists or therapists that could maybe help, but it was really the only thing that came to mind for me was meditation. Like there was just this thought of like, I need to meditate. I need to sort this out myself. Um, so yeah, I didn't really look in any other places, even though, in hindsight, maybe I should have, and I would not recommend anybody to just go off to Thailand, wherever you
Yeah,
are.
thank you. Yeah, that was a good sharing. So after you went to this temple, this monastery, and stayed there for 1 month, did you like start to meditate, and then they taught you to meditate straight away, or did anything change after you went to this temple for this month? I mean, like you started to learn something, and then you picked up like straightforward, or like how was it? Like did it change, or did it give you the answers you were looking for straight away?
So this is really like in the light of then how things developed for me in the last, let's say, 10 years or something. I could clearly see that it was an experience that was very it had a deep impact in my life, but it was really hard to sustain that for various reasons. First of all, after I left the temple, there was really no kind of support system that would allow me to keep this up. So when I returned after my time in Southeast Asia to Europe, I tried to call some Buddhist temples here, but the response that I received was not very welcoming. I remember I called up a couple of temples, but I didn't feel that they were certainly very keen on kind of responding to my inspiration. So I was very much left to my own devices. So then the only solution that I had at the time was to simply go traveling again and to hope that I will find similar positive circumstances to keep me inspired, which then led me to actually living in a meditation center in Spain about half a year later, where I helped to kind of set up the center, and it was just newly purchased the center. So I lived there, we practiced together, and supported each other. So then this aspect of community sort of suddenly kind of also appeared in my life, and the importance of that. It's not just enough to do it yourself, but to actually have the right circumstances around you that are supportive.
Yeah, sure. So, talking about like the timeline, like when was it when you went to Thailand for the first time?
Yeah, that was in 1999.
1990. Oh, I see. So that was the start when you actually uh, came to know Dharma and came to know these. So when you went back to Europe from Thailand, were you already a monk, like I mean, for example, when you went to the retreat in Spain, you were there like a lay people, or you were already uh, a monk? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was a layperson for most of my, like now it's going half half. So I became a monk around 12 years ago, but 11 years. So it's like, yeah, half and half now. So it was only 5 years after I met Mingyur Rinpoche that I first took the monastic robes. Yes.
I see. So has anything been changed like after you started to meditate, or how has thing changed after you started to meditate?
Hmm. I mean, one thing, sort of connecting it back maybe to what I said before about the kind of the direction that was missing in my life, is that for me that was really an anchor that kind of really kept me going, because I knew that it's really just my own uh, hmm, how to say this, sort of outer circumstances, like I have very little control of. I mean, of course we can try, but the only thing that's always with me is always my mind. And and this really gave me a kind of an anchor that I can honestly say is maybe the only thing kind of constant in my life, sort of like to have this trust that there is something that I can turn to, which is within me. Like it's kind of me myself giving me the anchor, and the meditation part was the tool towards that. So even in the beginning, I must say, it wasn't so much about the Dharma, it wasn't so much about Buddhism, but it was really just about the simple practice of meditation. So the Buddhist part actually only came a little bit later. And, once I understood sort of where the practice of meditation came from, I became curious, like actually who taught it? And then,
Yeah.
we get to the Buddha, and then it's like, oh, yeah, so who was he? And what else did he teach? And then slowly the broader sense of the Dharma opened for me. But it was actually very, very gradual that I got interested into the Buddha Dharma in general.
Yeah, I see, I see. So, at the very first beginning, when you started to meditate, was there any like particular practice you tried to do, or for example, for maybe students who are really just starting to meditate, is there any meditation technique that you would recommend to do? Or maybe
Mhm.
you could like also share with us, or maybe also lead us to the simple practice for like really like new students, new people to meditation.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, actually, the first methods that I was introduced to in Thailand, and then also when I lived in the meditation centers, was usually connected around the body and the breath. So actually very simple. And in the Thai monastery, there was also a lot of emphasis on walking meditation. But again, walking meditation in connection to the body sensations. And this is also how Mingyur starts, usually introducing the joy of living. Of course, it's with Mingyur teachings, it's of course always in relation to the importance of awareness. What I encountered first was that the awareness, or at least that's not what I found or at that time understood, the importance was not on the awareness, but actually of staying with the object, which for me is like the fundamental difference for me to discover that Mingyur image is kind of like focusing more on what is experiencing the sensations or the breath. So, so therefore, yes, that could be a good idea maybe for us gathered here to, um, and I hope you can hear me because I see sometimes Flaminio being frozen, uh, and I hope that's not. Can
Yeah,
you
actually,
still?
I can hear you quite well, and sometimes also your screen is a bit frozen. So I think also it's a good pause for the translators maybe to have like a bit of a rest. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that would be great if you could maybe lead us or show us a simple practice maybe on the body, on sensing it. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, do we have a poll option?
Yeah. You mean like poll questions?
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
a
but
yes.
I mean, me may need like, you mean like you want like yes and no question
Yeah.
or yes and no? Yeah, yeah. Maybe just give me like 2 minutes. I could set it up. So it's
So those of you familiar with sound meditation, while Flaminio is typing and we hear the sounds, we can actually just be aware of sounds. Wonderful. So yeah, maybe just for those of you who are completely new to meditation, if you can say yes, and for those of you who are already familiar with meditation, can say no. Wow, wonderful. Thank you so much. So, in that sense, for those of you who are completely new, thanks so much for joining and for your interest. And I can only recommend because now we can just give a little taste, obviously. And you know, our teacher Minga Rinpoche is the expert and the facilitators in Tergar Asia who lead courses, obviously. So I would really encourage you, if this is of some interest of you, to try to learn it in a step by step way through the courses that are offered. But we can still start with taking a upright posture. So what you want to see is that your spine is straight, and it's recommended that it's naturally straight. So we don't need to tense, just sitting with a straight spine. And if you're sitting on a chair, as these days most of us do, sitting on an office chair or something, you want to put your feet flat on the ground. And then with that upright and stable posture, we also see if we can relax the body. So just checking if we have any tension that we're holding. For some of us, it's the jaw muscles, sometimes it's the shoulders, sometimes even the hips or the calves. So we all have our favorite places where we tend to hold on. So we just notice that and see where we can let go a little bit. Let those muscles, those tensions loosen. But also accepting when there are tensions that don't go away, that are there for a long time and therefore they don't relax just because we want them to. So allowing them, accepting them. And when we accept these tensions, we also relax. And then, if you want, you can bring your awareness, your attention to the forehead. And see if you can simply feel your forehead. You might feel some tingling or some tension, and also relaxing a little bit if there should be tension or tightness, and being aware of the sensations. And then your head, your ears, your face, feeling the sensations and relaxing. Your throat and neck, And then see if it's possible, parallel, feeling both of your shoulders, the upper arms, down, body part by body part, to your hands and fingers. Feeling, being aware of sensations, and allowing to relax. And then your torso, the chest and upper back, moving down slowly to your hips, and then from the hips down your legs to the feet and toes. Feeling sensations, being aware of the sensations in these body parts, and relaxing. And then just feeling the body as a whole, feeling the weight of your body. And then without changing your body posture, if you want to slowly open your eyes and then just being completely normal, natural for a few moments. You can maybe look over your screen, over your computer screen. Okay, so this is what Mingo Rinpoche would call a body scan. This is where we use physical sensations as a support for resting the mind. So, especially when our mind is very busy, we have lots of thoughts, we are usually always up here, right? So, here, when we scan the body from the head to the feet, this is a very, very good way of grounding our mind, of relaxing, of bringing kind of the activity, which is usually up here, more down and regulating our system. So yeah, for those of you who are new to meditation, this is a little bit of a taste. And we might, in the flow of the evening, if you have some questions, then we could, talk a little bit about, why and how.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for the leaded the body scanning meditation, and also for me myself, like right now, even being learning meditation for many years, I think what we just did right now really helped me a lot. Like you said, like scanning it down and then bringing all the awareness like down a bit. So I think whoever is with us right now is really lucky to be here and to have this taste of meditation like we just had right now. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're saying
And
you're saying
yes.
something very important, Flaminio, is that even though there was like 27% new to meditation, for the rest of us, some have been meditating for a couple of years, some for 10 years, some for 20 years, but it's still important, and we still always come back to these very basic meditations, because in a way they're not basic, because we all have this tendency to lose ourselves in our thoughts. So this will never leave us. So the fact that, you, Flaminio, just sort of stating that, because of course you're moderating, you need to make sure that the evenings runs well. So there's automatically some tension in our mind whenever we have responsibility. And of course, for those of you out here, you know that from your life. You have many things you need to take care of. So to have methods that actually help us to kind of ground ourselves, to connect to something in us that is a little bit more peaceful, that it can help us to not be constantly drawn away by our thoughts, is really helpful. So yeah, wonderful that we could have some time to practice.
Yeah, really, thank you so much. And like just now, I wish we had this like maybe like 10 minutes before the evening conversation started. But I think, yeah, definitely at this point of the conversation, it was really amazing for me. And I hope also for the rest of you, you really enjoyed and had at least a taste of this really like genuine sense of awareness. Thank you. But like after you started to meditate, like it seems that you found a way, like at least not the solution like straightforward, but maybe a path that you believed it would work. So what is the biggest challenge since you started to meditate? Or like did meditation just solve everything, or like is there any like critical moments uh where where you still with this meditation you found some challenges, and what kept you going?
Hmm. Yeah, I guess the biggest challenge that I had over the years, and that I still have now, is basically to recognize the tendency of the mind to try to fix things out there, rather than recognizing that it's always us that experiences what we're experiencing. So what I see is like this constant movement and the habit of trying to find happiness out there rather than in here. And paradoxically, I would even think that that same mechanism is also that which keeps me going, because a part of me knows that it's in here. And as time goes on, maybe one thing that starts to happen is that I trust that a little bit more, that it's in here. And yet the tendency of that I might solve it out there is still there. So that's maybe the greatest challenge. Another one could be we I always want to have proof that things work, right? I want to see immediate results. So I'm German, so efficiency is a big deal. I want to know it works. And sometimes it's not as clear with this kind of practice, because as Mingyur always mentions, life and also meditation practice is always up and down. And in the times of the down, when things don't go that well, when meditation practice, because of maybe approaching it the wrong way, maybe because life is just really hard at that time, and for meditation to work well, it's just sometimes too overwhelming, that one loses heart. And so to sort of have this trust that just because things on the surface seem to go down, um, that it's still part of the process, and to trust in that. So this is like, and of course, there's many more, but these are two things that come to mind now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for the sharing. I mean, like every one of us will definitely encounter some challenges within meditation, and yeah, it's very great to know what you encountered and how you kept going. And also, like I know you travel a lot to different countries, and including the States or Europe or Asia. And do you think meditation or maybe Dharma can help people like us who live in modern societies and need to earn a living and then take care of our loved ones? Like, how could meditation help us in a realistic, in a pragmatic way?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, considering that one of the main challenges that we have are our emotions, our thoughts, being caught up in what we believe is right, is true, um, or the emotional turmoil that we face, and when we act in a way that is in connection to our negative emotions, the effect is very rarely positive. In my own experience, I have quite a temper. So, anger is something that can come very explosive in me. And uh, I haven't so far encountered a situation where was useful to act out on. Anger always had a negative effect in other people around me. And one of the things that we, especially in the joy of living path, that we eventually learn is how to, by these methods, starting with the body sensations and the body and the breath. But at one stage, we also learn how to work directly with our thoughts, with our emotions, with the monkey mind. And that in itself, even though I am not sure if it has a direct effect on like practical of how we can, have a better career or, be more successful in life, I don't know about that. Um, but certainly when we can manage our negative emotions, if we can manage our wild mind and have more calm, have more clarity, which are certainly qualities I can see that are kind of, manifesting through meditation. These are qualities that help everywhere, I believe. There might be, because of the calmness, for example, certain, let's say, maybe competitive attitudes, which might be a little bit reduced. So we might not, like be the like first in our class anymore, simply because we don't see the necessity anymore to put so much energy into something that we are not really sure if it's going to give that much satisfaction. But the question would be, do we need to be first, or is it okay to be second or third? So therefore, like the um, kind of weighing up, what are the values that we want to live our life by, and to be able to be a little bit more calm and maybe not as successful, but to be able to have the time to appreciate the nature or our family, and to be more kind and less caught up in our emotions. I think all of these things are for me, things that really contribute to more well-being and a more satisfying life. So therefore, it's a very long-winded answer to say yes, it has a pragmatic effect.
Yeah, thank you very much on that. And also, you just mentioned the Joy of Living program. So actually, Tergar Asia is going to have Joy of Living programs from September to December during the online events period. So, what do you find most inspiring about Mingyur Rinpoche's teaching or about the Joy of Living programs?
Yeah. So, um, as I said before about kind of my personal journey, it was about 6 years into my own meditation journey that I discovered Mingyur Rinpoche. And to be honest, for a long time, I thought of myself as a bad meditator, that I'm not good at meditation. That's simply what I thought. And one of the reasons being that either I didn't hear it or nobody ever told me. But I always thought that meditation is about being concentrated and not being allowed to think. And when I heard Mingyur Rinpoche teach on meditation, I had immediately trust that I can actually do this. The way that he taught it was so accessible and so reassuring, that it was like a not just a breath of fresh air, it was like a whole room full of oxygen. It felt like, wow, that's what I've been looking for. Um, and of course, it might have to do with my personal connection to Mingyur Rinpoche, because like when I first met him, it was like, wow, I want to learn from this person. Like there's something there that I, I want to know. So that I don't know, but in terms of just looking at the teachings, they are so accessible. They take so much into account our modern day conditioning. So they're not just sort of, even though they are based in a really pure tradition, but they're acknowledging the different facets of how we work as modern day human beings. They take into account different personality styles, which in some other traditions that I encountered wasn't really the fact. Wasn't really the case. And I felt like it's all sort of like, this is one way, and that's the only way you have to do it. And Mingyur Rinpoche opens this up and really gives many, many options where each personality type, I believe, can really connect to. So that's one part. The other part that I found is that through the three levels of joy of living, it's really a complete path. So you have methods that allow you to calm the mind. Then you have methods in joy of living 2 that allow you to get in touch with your positive emotions and your basic goodness. So it nourishes the heart somehow. It nourishes something in my being that only through a calm mind, I think I wouldn't really sort of see as clearly as with the Joy of Living 2 teaching. So there's a certain nourishment I feel. And then only then we come to the Joy of Living 3 teachings, which are to do with Vipassana, with insight meditation. So not just a calm and positive mind, but then also penetrating into the nature of reality. Uh, but it's going step by step, which in previous traditions, like sometimes I went straight into the deep end, straight to Vipassana, without having that grounding, which could sometimes maybe be too much of a challenge. So the way that he laid it out, um, I think, is very systematic and also uh, very accessible. And for me, the most beautiful thing, it's open to all, regardless of your worldview, regardless of your religion or having no worldview or no religion, if you want to simply use it as a meditation method.
Wow, that was such a nice introduction about the job living program as well. So, yeah, of course, if everyone who is here with us right now is interested in a more systematic learning and not just like having a glimpse or a taste of meditation, you are all very welcome to join the job living programs, of course. And in terms of like happiness, like you mentioned before, early before in your life, you were looking for maybe ways to solve this problem, to solve the outer, the inner issues, and maybe also to look for a sense of happiness. So did meditation actually brought you this sense of happiness, or like how is it different, for example, to go to parties and to be happy and to meditate and be happy? I mean, of course I see you always like smiling, you look very positive and happy to me, but like how does the things in terms of happiness works?
Hmm. Yeah, um, I guess one thing is, of course, it's kind of like when I'm, with you, when I'm with people that kind of like, through this connection, I naturally feel kind of like, open and joyful. Um, but at the same time, it really depends on a day-to-day basis of where I'm putting my focus. So, just because now I feel open and joyful because of this circumstance, it's not assured that I'm always this way. Because when I don't manage to get out of bed in the morning, or if I, fail to meditate for a few days, or, simply um, kind of get wrapped up in like things that are not as um, um, not having too much contribution to my well-being, then same thing for every one of us. So it always depends on a day-to-day basis. How am I spending my time? How I'm gonna kind of where am I gonna put my energy? Where's my focus? And therefore it's really something that I feel is something that we need to decide every day, every moment. Where am I focusing it? And the temptations of the world are great, and the distractions of the world are immense and multiple. So therefore, to kind of like um, have kind of like a recognition of that, having an acceptance that this is not a straightforward thing, but also having a kind of reminder, and spiritual friends or friends on the path I think are helpful, but also a sense of like reminding yourself again and again uh, through, I don't know, meeting with friends, going to regular courses, being sure that when I lose inspiration, that I do another course. Things like that really helped me over the years to stay on track.
Yeah, sure about that. And also, for the people who are here with us right now, one thing that later we will be having a Q&A session where you can actually submit your questions, and then I'll read them out and for Lamala to try to share with us or to answer them. So if you would like to submit your questions, you're free to write it in the Q&A box. So later I'll go through the Q&A box and then I'll read through the questions. So like we still have like 5 minutes, so you're free to start to prepare your questions, and later we will go through that part. And uh, like what is the current development status or development situation of meditation or dharma in Germany or in Europe, or maybe if you would like to share with us maybe your journey to you became a monk, or maybe some interesting stories that you had with Ring Rinpoche. Yeah, it's up to you. Like like how is it in the West? Yeah.
Mm. Wow, that very broad questions. It's That one is a tough one to answer because, of course, it's a very individual perception, right, of what is Buddhism in the West. I mean, West is like, I don't know, I think that Istanbul is kind of like the boundary between the West and the East. So, there's many, many different cultures. So it probably will manifest in different nations differently. Um, but internally, I would think just in terms of when we look at monotheistic, conditioned countries, as opposed to more pluralistic conditioned societies like the Far East, where uh, different um, um, deities are kind of like accepted, like in the Indian tradition. There I can see a lot of how to say um, conditioning of one truth only. Like, if there's only one God, there's only one truth. Uh, but teachings, what we find in the Joy of Living 3, for example, or in Buddhism, that point toward emptiness. I mean, there can never be one truth. It's always much more complex and varied than that. So therefore, I think this is one thing that for quite some years now is really on my mind of like how teachings coming from one culture to another that has a strong conditioning in a certain way. How is that adopting process happening? And I think it was Tulku Urgen Rinpoche telling Mingyur Rinpoche about that process being like a kidney transplant. So the body needs to adapt to the kidney, and the kidney needs to adapt to the body. So, and I think that adaptation process is still in operation. I think we got some sound there.
Yeah, God, I just muted it. Yeah, no problem. Sorry.
Yeah. So therefore, I guess in the let's say, I'm not sure if it's just West or if it's the modern era where people are disjointed from also traditional values, where like the scientific kind of movement has taken hold, which also tends to kind of like oh, that's what science says, so therefore it's true, rather than seeing the scientific method as something that continuously explores what the actual truth is. Sometimes it's just taken as fact, just because one scientist might have discovered something. But then, 10 years later, it might be proven to be wrong. But that tendency of like, coming to one conclusion that's right, I think is very tempting. And I can see that tendency certainly in myself, and Mingyur Rinpoche calls that singularity. I'm right. I'm the best. Yeah. I'm not sure if that really answered your question, but there was a few
Yeah,
thoughts
yeah.
around.
I mean, yeah, that was a really good sharing, and also like you have personally traveled also to Asia, and of course,
Mm,
from your personal perspective, we are living in a different society, different points of views, different traditions here in Asia. And do you have like maybe any mm, like what do you think it's our advantage or our strength that we are learning meditation or practicing dharma here in Asia compared to maybe people having learning it in Germany or learning it in Europe? Like what do you feel it's the strength that we have here in Asia?
yeah, yeah. I guess because in Asia the kind of the Dharma was there originally, so there's many people who are already, even not obviously, but somehow conditioned by these let's say philosophies, by the Dharma. And even though it might have changed over the centuries, but there's something within the maybe kind of system that is influenced by a more open worldview, rather than by like a one truth kind of worldview. And then that practically might manifest what I just said about like one kind of one truth, or like I'm the best, which I can certainly recognize in myself, but that And recently I came across this article in one of the German magazines, like The Century of the Self. That was the title, like on the front page of the magazine. And it really points to like a very individualistic approach. And this is certainly something that I don't perceive so much in the East, where there's much more of a communal, the family is still very important. And that's kind of kind of like, yeah, integrating, I think, disintegrating in the West, where family systems are not as strong anymore, and there's a very individualistic movement. And as far as I can see, in the East, there's much more cohesion, and community is very much in the forefront. So this is one very clear distinction that I can see. I'm not sure if like the participants here would agree, but I see as a great advantage.
Yeah, of course, from your point of view, and then, yeah, we it's really a good point, and also I think at this point, one thing we could do is have a break. We have been talking for 1 hour, and I believe also the audience and also the translators, they are like, so before we actually start the Q&A session, we could have like a 5 minutes break. Yeah, yeah,
Very good.
sure. Yeah,
Thank you,
sure.
Flamingo.
So, thank you. Okay, so welcome back, and welcome to the Q&A session of the meditation scene event. 好，欢迎大家回来。那让我们开始跟同学们问答的部分。So now I'll read through the questions and maybe Lamala will try to share with us. 那我现在会来念一下这些问题，那拉玛会和我们分享。So, based on your personal experience, in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, how the open awareness or resting the mind is better than the object-oriented meditation? Like,
Hmm. So I'm I'm not sure if it's about better or worse, but Mingyur Rinpoche always talks about different personality types. And when it comes to my personal experience, I'm somebody whose tendency is to be quite focused and maybe a little bit narrow. So for me, practicing awareness is really useful in order to counteract this tendency of becoming even tighter when I would make maybe the object more important. So I, first of all, enjoy open awareness a lot. For those of you who don't know that, this is something, a method that will be introduced in the Joy of Living teachings. And there's one thing that really kind of opened my eyes towards why that might be, where they did a research on different kinds of meditation practices with experienced and beginner meditators about 10 years ago. And they had open awareness kind of practices and more object focused practices. And for beginners, it was and experienced practitioners, when they used the objects, they could focus kind of for 2 3 minutes, nearly the same. But then when it came to kind of more sustained um, uh, concentration, let's say, or staying with meditation, then it was much easier to sustain it with a more open approach rather than a too focused approach, because the mind gets tired when we place too much importance on the object rather than the subject.
yeah, thank you for that. And also the next question, sometimes it's difficult to get into the meditation calm mode. So how to get easier into this kind of zone?
Yeah, very good question. And it shows something that is kind of one of the, let's say, obstacles that I had also. I was always looking for calm. Calm meaning no thoughts, less thoughts. But the way that Mingyur Rinpoche teaches is not about that. It's about having awareness or not. So calm can come and go. That's just an experience that sometimes emerges when we practice well. But also, sometimes it's not calm, But when we are aware, there's a deeper kind of calm that's not to do with if there are thoughts or not. But this really takes time to get to that point. So therefore, looking of how we, um, yeah, that we really understand the way that Mingyur Rinpoche introduces those techniques, because I think it's a really subtle but very important point. But this one takes time to really sort of like let it sink in. And sometimes we need to hear it many, many times. So with this one, it's good to look out for, to not misinterpret calm.
Thank you very much on this question. I think, like you mentioned, it might take time, and it's also a really important thing. So maybe like through practice, it will develop. And how do you first met Mingyur Rinpoche?
Hmm. It was actually in India, in Bodh Gaya, at a time when I kind of really recognized that even though I've been in the Dharma for quite some time, that I needed somebody who I can trust, kind of having arrived at his destination, not just friends who kind of like, are also on the way, but actually who I feel that arrived. And we might call this a teacher. And and then, I ended up in India and I was walking around asking people, how can I find a good teacher? And then actually somebody mentioned a few names, and one of them was Mingyur Rinpoche, and that person said, I think he's now here in Bodh Gaya, so you might want to go and see him. And so this is where I met him the first time. And actually, in this first meeting, he already gave me the first Joy of Living One, kind of one of the methods that he teaches now in the courses as well. So he's really like whoever he meets, either through courses or, maybe this was a one-on-one meeting by some luck. Um, he always teaches the same.
Wow, that's wonderful. I'm glad like you met him, and then you're here to share it with us right now. And how do you maintain awareness in daily life?
Practice, practice. So for this, two things help. One is to establish a formal meditation, so where you take some time out, where you actually practice every day, so that you can kind of have the basis of even, in a when you don't have distractions, to get in touch with awareness. And then to set the intention when you go about in your life, may I remember this? May I come back to awareness again and again? So the intention helps us to remember. So when you, I don't know, when you think about catching a flight tomorrow morning, sometimes we wake up before the alarm clock even goes, right? Because we set the intention before. That's how powerful intention can be, that we even wake up before our alarm clock. So the same principle here. If we put this intention to remember, even though in the beginning we might not, because not so much is at stake when we don't remember awareness in daily life, then we will miss an airplane. At least that's what we think. But if we see the importance of establishing more awareness in our life, then maybe this intention and the formal practice can carry us a long way. And of course, remembering the teachings again and again.
Thank you very much. And here is a question which is in Chinese a bit long. Maybe I'll also read it in Chinese. So, 对于生命很迷惘，觉得找不到存活的意义的人，学禅修或学佛法，真的有帮助吗？真的可以找到生命存活的意义吗？So this question is about I feel so lost about life, and I think I couldn't find the meaning of being alive as a person. And learning meditation or learning Dharma, does it really help? Like, can it really help us to find the meaning of life, the meaning of being alive? Yeah.
Hmm. Well, in my case, it did. And it's not so much that meaning is in meditation, but what meditation did for me is that through meditation, I didn't believe so much in my thoughts that life was meaningless, because life is meaningless is also a thought. And when I discovered something in my own being that was just there, like awareness or also some kindness in my system that connected me to others around me, then the thoughts of like life is bad, life is meaningless weren't so strong anymore. But of course, life is not easy. And whatever circumstances, you might find yourselves in, or, others also here in the meeting, or when you look out in the world, we see that life is not easy. And yet, we have family, we have friends. And even though these relationships might sometimes be challenging, but just the relationship to our mother or our father, and sort of honoring kind of they bringing us to this earth, uh, that in itself is already meaningful. So when we kind of drop our thoughts around this, or like learn how to deal with our thoughts, then these simple things can come through. And meaning can be found in very, very little things. And for some reason, what comes to mind just now is actually um, some cleaners in the streets. I'm not sure if I saw them in Italy or here in Germany, but there are people who are cleaning the streets, the roads, in the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning, with such dignity, so that people, when they go to work at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning, they have clean streets. And when I see these people cleaning up the streets with such dignity, because they actually might be in touch with picking up the litter and brushing the streets, actually has meaning, because it makes others happy when they walk along the streets. Of course, it's their job, but meaning can be found in very simple things. But what's necessary for that is we need to find a way to connect to a calm and easeful mind. And then, of course, other qualities like our basic goodness. So I'm so glad that you joined, and others who might connect to this question, who sometimes fail or like struggle with finding that meaning. Yeah, don't give up. It's sometimes closer than we think.
Oh, this one was amazing. Thank you very much. And so here's another question. Um, when we just did the body scanning meditation, it was like from the top and until downwards. So he would like to ask whether it could be done from down till up, the
Definitely.
scanning or the relaxation. Yeah.
Definitely, no problem. So we can go from up to down and then back up again. And sometimes, depending how you feel, when you're more busy in your thoughts, you can like just do it from up, down, up, down. But if you feel very tired, it could be in the opposite direction. So see also the effect that it has. But there's no kind of rule of how to scan.
Thank you very much. Um, when I practice meditation, I usually could sometimes couldn't distinguish whether it is uh, the mind being awareness or being more sensitive, or maybe it's just like me myself is it's making small things bigger. So could you share on that as well?
Yes. So this is, mm, if you remember a situation when you came home from a busy day and you relax, these are or when you go to bed and suddenly everything is finished, you're not busy anymore, suddenly you start to think, right? More. Because at that moment you're relaxing. You don't have anything else to do, so your mind has time to think. It's similar to that. Now when we, sit down and meditate, suddenly we see more what we think. But it doesn't mean that they haven't been there before. So it's actually a good sign, and Rinpoche calls this a waterfall experience. So when we start out to meditate, it's sometimes like that, but it's a good sign.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. And also, here are questions about um, when they try to meditate or try to do like formal meditation, and as soon as they start to do that, then their body is tightening, and this is the more I sit, the more I am like freezed up. So should I like let go, or how to say, abandon learning meditation? Actually, I've been learning meditation for several years, and I've encountered this question, and how could I adjust?
Mhm. So if you haven't done Joy of Living 1, then would certainly recommend to do that. If you have done it already and it's still happening, then it could be something very simple, but just not sitting cross-legged on the floor, for example, of actually sitting in a chair rather than putting yourself in an uncomfortable posture. Um, but it could also just be that you're trying too hard. And that's why in the beginning I said, definitely attend a Joy of Living one teaching, because there's many, how to say, like pith instructions that Mingyur Rinpoche gives of how to approach meditation in a good way that doesn't make us tight. So a lot of emphasis in his teachings are around being natural. So sometimes we think that meditation is something very special where we need to like attain a certain state or achieve something, but it's not like that at all. It's actually much closer to who we really are. But we think we need to kind of make something special out of it. So the main important thing in meditation is to relax. But here also, relaxation doesn't mean you have to feel relaxed, but like accepting and allowing everything that is, even the tension, even the tightness. And then through accepting that, maybe it can loosen a little bit. I hope that helps. But it's not an easy one.
Yeah, thank you and very much. And here, do you always have this kind of online meetings? It would be good to practice with someone who can guide us on the meditation.
That's a question I think for the organizers. So Flaminia, maybe you want to say something.
Yeah, actually, we're going to Tergar Yeshe is going to have the Joy of Living level one course, I believe, in October. So actually, starting from September till December, there will be a series of online teachings. So you're most welcome to join that. But I also think maybe a part of this question is actually uh, appreciating a lot the meditation that actually Lama Holger brought us during and through this meditation. Uh, so maybe he was also asking whether you are sharing this kind of things maybe in Terga in Terga Germany regularly, like online
Yeah.
practice maybe.
Yeah, not so much. My time is mainly focused on the Joy of Living courses. So this is how I mainly kind of turn up in terms of my activities. And then we have local meditation groups that I'm sure also Terga Asia offers, where locally you have some coordinators and facilitators, maybe guiding practice sessions at times.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Of course. On Turgaisha side, there are many guided practice sessions as well. So you are very welcome to join the Job Living programs coming in September and October. And now, thank you so much, Lama Hoga, for the great speech. I've learned to meditate for 5 years and always thought I am a bad meditator for not being able to practice every day. So it's such a relief to hear your sharing and makes me believe that journey is long and worth continue to pursue. My nephew, a 18-year-old young girl, has depression, and I am keen to introduce meditation to her. What should I do to make a teenager to get interested and further know the meaning of meditation? Thank you.
Hmm. I mean, with things like depression, Mingarum, which, since a few years, he's very clear that sometimes, we meditation is not a medicine for all. So in certain conditions, one needs to maybe rely on other forms of help, like a psychologist or sometimes even medication. But when it can go together with meditation, then he says at one stage maybe the outer help can fall away, like medication or the help of a psychologist or a therapist. So, but in terms of like, making people interested in something, one can only share, one can, like show kindness to those who are around us. But to get somebody to do something is always a very, how to say, um, uh, challenging endeavor. And I remember my father was, when he went into pension, when he stopped, his work as a teacher, he developed a severe depression, and he was struggling a lot, and I was very worried about him. And I wanted to get him to meditate, and I tried for 2 years. And of course, because I was pushing so hard, I want to help you, Dad. He, as the more that I pushed, the more he actually, was not interested. And only when I let go, he actually himself signed on to a course and then started to meditate. And then over years, I could share even, Rinpoche's teachings with him. And yeah, it's something that we can put the intention, we can spend time with people that we care for, but it's really hard to convince somebody. So it has to be something really natural. Otherwise, it might have the opposite effect.
Yeah, of course, of course. Thank you on this one. And here, Lamala, I have only attended Joy of Living level 1, and every day I'm practicing meditation, but still I cannot be concentrated. And also, I cannot also focus on the benefits of Dharma, and I usually want to pursue something on my career or on my work, and to be successful, to be uh, appreciated, and how to deal with this.
Hmm. I don't think there's a need to, like go completely just for Dharma and disregard other things in our lives. And especially, if we have family or responsibilities, we have to also be quite practical. I'm not a very practical person by nature. So, for me, it was okay to just focus like, pretty much most of my energies into practice. But we need to eat. We need to have a roof over our head. So it's okay to be completely practical and focus also on career, of course. And then in terms of the first part of the question, um, there's one example that I really like that Mingaram sometimes give about what gives us stability, or use the word concentration. And it's like what we establish is awareness. And this is like the pillar or the flag post. But what we usually want is a calm where the flag, where there's no wind, no thoughts. But actually, what we instead want to achieve is a stability of awareness. And no matter how much wind there is, the awareness is this what gives us calm. So, therefore, if outwardly you might feel uncalm, if you have awareness that you are not calm, there's something deeper in you that is calm. So awareness is the most important, not if you're feeling calm or not.
Yeah, thank you very much. And uh, here is a question: is how could I continue my formal meditation to informal, like after practice situations?
Yeah, I think I responded to that before, like with how to bring awareness into daily life. Same thing. It needs the intention, it needs the formal practice, and it needs the methods that Mingarung is introducing of how to kind of include it into day to day.
Okay, so the last question here, I guess time is running out. How do I know that I am actually being with awareness?
Do you know that you're here? Do you know that you see my face or Flaminio's face? So the essence of meditation is awareness, and awareness is knowing. So as long as we, as Mingyur Rinpoche always says, as long as we are not zombie, it's okay. It's only when we are completely lost in thoughts. That's the only time where for sure we are not meditating or we are not with awareness. But otherwise, if we are not, it's nothing special. As long as we're not completely lost in our thoughts, it's fine. And even if we should get completely lost, no problem. The moment you remember that we were completely lost, we're already back in awareness.
Well, that's really an really important and amazing trick. Um, here, thank you very much again, Lama Holger. Like we really had an amazing conversation. So thank you very much from Tergar, Taiwan, and for all the volunteers and for all the students. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining and for the organizers, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. 好，那今天我们就非常荣幸，也非常开心，邀请到拉玛来跟我们分享。那我们的活动就告这边到一个段落。So here we are very happy again to have Lama Holger to share and to have this conversation here with us. So that's about the whole event, and thank you very much for your participation. Thank you.